Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's eFolder webinar, BDR Pain Relief, 5 Ways to Reduce Your BDR Support Costs. Hello, my name is Ted Holsey. I'm Vice President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to the eFolder Expert Series. This webinar series brings together experts from eFolder staff and the partner community for deep dive discussions on key service and technical topics. Today we are joined by Lloyd Wolf, President and CEO of Wolf Consulting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In just a moment, I will further introduce Lloyd. Before we go through the agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available for a limited time to the partners that are registered for the event. We will also make copies of the slides available for those that attended the event. With over 180 people registered for today's webinar, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. Now let me introduce our guest. Lloyd Wolf is President and CEO of Wolf Consulting Incorporated, a managed services provider located just outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The company has been in business for 23 years and specializes in providing computer, networking, and IT consulting services to small and mid-sized businesses. Wolf Consulting has 17 employees. The company is a member of HTG peer groups, uses Kaseya for its RMM tool, and uses ConnectWise for its PSA tool. Lloyd was born and raised in Pittsburgh. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering from the University of Pittsburgh, as well as various technical certifications from Microsoft, SonicWall, and other industry vendors. Welcome to Lloyd. Now let's look at today's agenda. I'm going to start out with a brief introduction to BDR services and then turn things over to Lloyd. Lloyd will dig into the key things partners need to do to keep your BDR support costs low and your profits high. We will conclude with a special section for your questions. Organizations have to defend against 3 kinds of business interruptions today. First, everyday disasters are incredibly common. Hardware failures, especially disk drive failures, occur all the time. Users delete or lose files. Corrupted software installs are common. Human error is a key contributor to everyday disasters. Natural disasters or site-wide disasters are far less common. They do happen, however, and the consequences for a business can be deadly. Fire or property insurance always seems like a needless expense until you need it. The same goes for backup and disaster recovery preparedness. In some parts of the country, say in the Gulf Coast or in Tornado Alley, the likelihood of a site-wide disaster is even higher. Most businesses cannot survive the complete loss of their critical business data. If customer records, financials, and accounting records are completely lost, most businesses would have a hard time recovering from such an event. Lastly, businesses need to guard against any kind of system downtime. In today's competitive market, the fast eats the slow. Businesses can't afford for their employees to be down, out of touch, or unproductive. Servers, workstations, and mobile assets need to operate at peak performance so knowledge workers, salespeople, engineers, and support personnel can get their day-to-day jobs done well. If disasters do occur, recovery has to be fast and complete. This diagram provides a simple overview of the main functions of a BDR installation. BDR, by the way, stands for Backup and Disaster Recovery. First, the imaging software running on the production servers captures an initial image of the server along with incremental image backups and stores them on the local BDR appliance. The BDR appliance acts as both a storage server and as a standby server in the event the production server fails. The BDR appliance, leveraging virtualization technology, can bring up the image of the down server and operate just like a production server. Since both the data and complete server configuration is backed up, this on-site recovery can happen in minutes, not hours or days. Recovery of single files and folders or Microsoft Exchange items can also be performed from the appliance. To deliver additional protection, a complete BDR solution backs up the server images daily to the cloud, providing extra protection from on-site disasters. The client or partner can recover the server images from the cloud via a download or a shipment of a hard drive with the server images. Or partners may elect to recover the servers in the cloud if the vendor supports cloud-based virtualization and recovery. Cloud-based recovery is a vital feature if the client needs fast recovery and protection from virtually any kind of disaster. Okay, that was a brief introduction to BDR technology and services. Now let me turn it over to our expert, Lloyd Wolf. Lloyd, take it away.
Thanks very much, Ted. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead, yep.
Great. Well, just as I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and your webinar listeners today. As you had mentioned just in my brief introduction, I'm the president and CEO of Wolf Consulting Incorporated. We're a managed services provider located just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I started the company 23 years ago, and we primarily focus on providing networking and IT consulting services to small and mid-sized businesses in our area. We have 17 employees, and we're a member of HTG peer groups. And it was actually at HTG where I first met Jan Spring of eFolder probably about a year and a half ago or so at one of the HTG quarterly meetings. Just by way of history, I can say that in the past, we were very standardized on the semantic backup exec software. And while backup exec had provided reliable backups for our clients, I was concerned that there were some features in backup and recovery that our clients didn't have with the backup exec software, such as restore to dissimilar hardware or fast virtualization options or automated off-site transfers. And as a business owner, I was concerned that with all of the talk of BDR in the industry, I was concerned that possibly a competitor would approach one of our clients, tell them about advanced backup and recovery with imaging and BDRs, and it would introduce some problems into our relationship with our client since I had never talked about that technology or I wasn't offering that technology. I know some colleagues of mine had struggled with some other vendors' BDR products, and personally we tried a BDR product from another vendor in our office, and despite our best efforts, struggled mightily to get it to work. And I would say probably about a year ago, I sat down with our technical services manager. We decided that we needed to implement the BDR solution. We needed to have it in our portfolio as be one of our services offerings, but didn't really know which vendor to choose. So we did an exhaustive analysis of, I believe, 12 different vendors. Came up with a big, wide, and big, long spreadsheet analyzing lots of different components and features and functions. And in that analysis, eFolder came out on top as the vendor that met all of our requirements and didn't have any of the pitfalls that some of the other vendor solutions had that would cause us not to choose their solution. I can quickly mention some of the things that we looked at whenever we were kind of doing our initial analysis, just for the listeners so they might have an idea of some of the things that we looked at. One of our questions was, I'll kind of just maybe go down a big long list. If anybody wants to write it down, they're certainly welcome to, and I can provide it to you afterwards. What type of software was being used, and what version of the software was being used. How did you go about performing basic file and folder restores of on-site data, whether or not you could restore the system state or not, and if so, how you would go about doing it. If there was an option to do a bare metal restore or restore to dissimilar hardware or not. If there was an option to do granular recovery of Exchange mailboxes or Exchange public folders or not. Some basic things about technical support hours, what the hours were, where the support was provided from, and whether or not there was after-hour support. We also want to know what type of monitoring was available to let us know that the backups were happening. What type of centralized reporting and monitoring was available so that we could see the results of all of our clients from a single pane of glass. Whether there was an option for on-site virtualization or not, and if there was an option that we could use for testing on-site virtualization. Whether there was any type of off-site or cloud virtualization. and what was the process like for sending in the preload disks. That was probably about half of the things that we looked at, but kind of made a big, long spreadsheet of those items and went across 12 different vendors. As we went through, many of the answers were the same across the vendors, but for one reason or another, all of the other vendors fell short in at least one area, some in more than one area. And I think I had mentioned to you, Ted, that some of the things that helped us choose eFolder and some of the reasons that made us feel comfortable that that was the right choice for us were the 5 items that you have on your screen here. And we'll talk about each of those in more detail through the rest of the webinar. Flexibility for small businesses, always current software components, silent data corruption prevention, exchange granular recovery, and continuous partner listening and innovation.
Okay, Lloyd, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Can you confirm that you do have slide control there?
Let me see.
You can advance the slide. You should just have to click. There we go. Okay.
There we go. So I can do that. I'm sorry, I didn't have that. There we go. Yeah, so those are the 5 things that we can talk about here. Flexibility for small business, always current software components, silent data corruption prevention, exchange granular recovery, and continuous partner listening and innovation. I talk about flexible deployments for small business. Many of our clients are small businesses. Many of them are single server environments. Many of them are running Microsoft Small Business Server. So we do have certainly other clients that have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, even 10 servers. But a large percentage of our clients are just single server environments. And as we started to promote our new backup services offering, one of the things that we ran into a little bit of problem was with regard to our smallest clients was the actual hardware investment in buying the BDR server appliance itself. And maybe there's some more talented salespeople out there that could have sold these, but we were just running up against a hard time for this company that has a single server environment. They were kind of pushing back on the price investment for buying, in essence, a second server to be at their office just for the purposes of backups, especially since most of our clients, we had always been able to restore anything that they had asked for in the past. So it was a little bit of a hard sell for us. And one of the things that worked well in working with eFolder was a Shadow Protect backup system where we didn't have to. We could have the BDR appliance, but we didn't have to. So eFolder gave us the flexibility of not making the customer buy that second piece of hardware. So in those cases, like you have on the slide here, Ted, we have the production server. Maybe I'll just call it an SBS server in this case. And then we'd attach directly to that server some type of storage device like a mirrored USB disk, or we could even do a mirrored NAS appliance, something like that. We install the Shadow Protect software on the server itself. We snap images of the server, typically hourly, and we store those backups on the attached storage device. We then use the eFolder backup software tool to copy our images on a daily basis off-site and save them up to the eFolder data center. That gives our clients the benefits of, in the past when we were just working with the backup exec file and folder type backup software, their clients were typically only getting 1 backup per day. So with this solution, we can give them a backup every hour, and even more frequently than that if we wanted to. So they get multiple backups per day and multiple restore points per day, which is far better than what we were doing before for our clients with just the once-a-day backups. It was also image-based and had the option for restore to dissimilar hardware, which was something that our clients didn't have before. And it also gave us the automated off-site transfer, so we didn't have to worry about our clients remembering to changing the tapes or rotating between tapes or disks every day, or forgetting to do so, or dealing with the business risks that they'd have by failing to do so. Pretty much the only thing that we don't provide to our client with this type of scenario that I'm explaining here is the on-site virtualization options. So in talking with our clients, it seemed to be a healthy mix between giving them some advanced features that they didn't have before. They don't have the on-site virtualization option if we go this route, but it still gave them multiple features that they didn't have before. Let us put the technology in place. Let us manage their backups. And it worked well. We found it worked well for many of our smaller clients that are single server environments. So eFolder having that option has really enabled us to sell this technology and implement this technology and help our clients that were just in those smaller environments in single server world.
So, hey, Lloyd, I want to ask a couple questions before we leave this slide. One participant wants to know, the slide log just advanced, so I lost the question. Hold on a second. How do you quote clients, and do you have any resistance from clients on pricing that changes monthly?
Typically, we would quote our clients a fee per month that would include the backup software, our services for installing and configuring the software, for managing the backups, for monitoring the backups, and for doing basic file and folder restores. From talking with other members of my peer group at HTG and some other colleagues, I see people charging for this type of a thing anything between, I've seen it as low as $100 a server a month and as high as $200 or $300 per server per month for just that feature. And then separately charging for the per gigabyte pricing. I do know some companies who are quite comfortable with just charging per gigabyte, and whatever the gigabyte is each month they charge for that. In our world, kind of like the way the questioner was asking, the price changing every month, we decided to sell our services more in increments of 100 gigabyte limits. And when we sell it up front, we would estimate how many gigabytes they're going to need and just include that in our price. So, I mean, if I'm looking at someone's server and they have 300 gigabytes of data, I'm going to estimate how much data they're going to store over the next year and just charge them that price from the very beginning, so the price does not change from a month-to-month basis.
Okay. One other question, more of kind of like a technical and operational question. Some MSPs examine the backup logs every single day. Why must they do that? Is there a downside from not doing it?
Yeah, I mean, personally, we are looking at the results of the backups every day. We have a couple different monitorings going on, and I think it's important because, especially when we're ultimately responsible for these backups, in the past, I suppose you could say we were ultimately responsible. We were installing and configuring and monitoring backup exec, and if it wasn't working, I mean, they could still hold us accountable for, hey, we were supposed to be watching it was working. But in those cases, I mean, the customer was really buying their own backup software, and they were hiring our consulting services to install it and manage it. But in this case, I feel a heightened sense of responsibility since the customer really is hiring us to take care of their backups for them. As a business owner, I need to make sure that their backups are working. And we found with the eFolder solution, there were a couple of ways that we could do that easily. One was we use Kaseya, as you mentioned, Ted, for our RMM tool. And one of the things that works well with both the Shadow Protect software, which is doing the, in our case, hourly on-site images, as well as the eFolder replication software, that in our case we're running nightly to copy our backup images off-site up to the eFolder data center. Both of those programs are writing events to the event log. So we're able to monitor with our existing Kaseya tools to get an alerts anytime that there's an error, event error recorded in the event log, or anytime there's an absence of an event. So if we say, hey, we know we're supposed to do on-site backups every hour. So if a couple hours goes by and we don't get a backup, we need to look at it. Or we know we're supposed to off-site our images every day. So if a day plus a couple of hours goes by and we haven't gotten a successful event log entry for it going off-site, we can investigate. But what I found out, it was very easy for me to go the Kaseya route just because we were so used to monitoring event logs and it was natural to us. What I found was eFolder is actually doing those things for us. And when we log into the eFolder portal and we see all of our customers' accounts listed there, it'll actually tell us the last time that an offsite image was transferred. Then also built into that, eFolder's checking the daily roll-ups of the images on the server, and the eFolder monitoring software will actually alert us if there was some reason that the on-site backups themselves were not working. And I do know one of my colleagues in HTG had told me a story of one time where they were working with another BDR product, and when they went into the portal, they were getting green check marks that everything was successful. It was synced between on-site and off-site. What it wasn't telling them was their on-site backups were not working. And they were synced, but they were synced because nothing was changing and nothing was getting backed up. So it was important to me to make sure that I had a way of knowing that the on-site backups were happening. And I think between our Kaseya tool, which we kind of had in place and felt comfortable with, as well as kind of by itself, we really didn't even need the Kaseya tool. eFolder lets us know that that's running. So I can sleep well at night knowing that I'm comfortable the backups are running for our clients.
Yeah, so Lloyd, what kind of two more questions on this slide, and then we'll move on, but kind of a follow-on technical question. Is there a way one can periodically download the backed up data from the cloud to a disaster recovery site and standby server for testing?
I have not done that myself yet. We've downloaded it. I mean, we've taken the backups that are on-premise and tested those from a restore, and we've tested those in a recovery environment. I personally haven't yet gone through the exercise of downloading it from eFolder directly, but I know that that's technically possible to do. Just through the eFolder software, I could download files that are at the data center, download them either to my site or to my client site, and do whatever testing we want to with it.
Okay, great. And then just kind of a question around pricing. There is a slight difference in how the pricing for this deployment scenario works versus the standard BDR offering. Do you want to just comment on that? It's a small difference, but...
You mean with the dollars per server?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think just from an eFolder standpoint, the price for the Shadow Protect software itself, whenever you license the Shadow Protect software per server with the BDR appliance, it's $20 per month per server. And with this method where it's like what we call our small business deployment where there's no BDR, it's just the attached device, I believe we pay $25 per server per month for the software.
That's right. Okay, so that's all the questions on this slide. So,
okay, let's see if we can't move on here to the, there we go, the always current software component. So this was one of the things that I was impressed with eFolder, and that was really a problem that kind of vetoed us choosing many of the other providers. I won't mention names just to not harass anyone else, but we've had some problems with some other backup solutions where the OEM partner, by contract, is always like one version behind whatever software the backup provider actually has available in the marketplace. So, the backup provider is on version 8, but anybody who's using the OEM version of their software is on version 7. Even though there might be some features in version 8 that you want, it's just kind of a way that they, kind of differentiate their OEM product offering from the retail product offering. And, one of the things that I liked about eFolder whenever I started, doing our analysis and comparing was that while other companies were telling me that they were on version 3 or version 3.5 of the Shadow Protect software, when I asked eFolder, they were on version, I believe it was 4.0 at the time, and 4.1 was, in the process of being released, and they were asking us, saying that, well, we could get 4.1 if we wanted, or we could get 4.0. And I learned, certainly, Ted, you could probably comment on the exact language of the agreement that you have with Shadow Protect, but I found that, eFolder had an agreement with Shadow Protect where the eFolder partners always had access to the current version of the Shadow Protect software. So that was impressive to me. So, rather than always knowing that I was always going to be a version behind. In partnering with eFolder, I knew that we'd always have access to the latest version of the software. I mean, whether we wanted it or not, just because someone comes out with version 5 this week doesn't mean I might want to go and deploy version 5 to all of the production servers for all of my customers this week. But to know that it's kind of up to me to determine when I want it and it's right there and available for me to use was very important criteria in us choosing the vendor that we wanted to work with. I don't know if you have any questions that popped in on versions of software.
One question wants you to name, one participant wants you to name names on the people who are forcing you to be back rebbed, but we won't have to do that.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to make any enemies here, but.
But I guess what's the payoff? I mean, what's the payoff in your day-to-day operations? From always being at the current rep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just knowing that there are features and functions that are available in the software, and to know as the technology continues to drive up in terms of Windows servers and Microsoft servers, to kind of be handcuffed and feel that our software is always behind, like by contract. We're always going to be behind. And I guess as I learned in going through this, it's not that uncommon. I suppose it's some kind of industry practice that the software developers do with their OEM partners. And from what I learned, it was actually rather a unique arrangement with eFolder, that eFolder's agreement with the OEM, with the software vendor, was that they would have the current version of the software.
That's right. That's right. Yep. So yeah, no more questions on this topic, I think.
Okay. The third one here, so we're on 3 of 5. The third one I'll talk about would be silent data corruption. Let's see, I think I clicked ahead here. There we go. Silent data corruption. So I have to admit, I'm kind of embarrassed, but I didn't really know much about silent data corruption until I started talking with the folks at eFolder. I mean, I just assumed that when you put data on a hard drive, I'm used to talking about RAID arrays with our clients and saying, hey, you're not dependent on any one disk, and this one disk could fail in your server, and your data is fine, and your servers keep running. And I just imagine that these data centers had these really big RAID arrays with terabytes and petabytes of information, and that if a hard drive failed, hey, they would swap out a hard drive, but certainly we'd never lose any data. And in talking with eFolder, I found that this whole world of a topic called silent data corruption, and I'm still certainly far from an expert in the topic, and I'm not sure if there's, Ted could bring on someone that could talk in the specifics of silent data corruption, but I mean, it's talking about saying, hey, you've got this perfectly healthy set of disks and a perfectly healthy RAID array, but just kind of built into the disks themselves is some type of error rate where a tiny fraction of some type of bit error rate where reading or writing the data to the disk is going to be wrong. But when you multiply it by gigabytes and petabytes of information, it just introduces the likelihood that actually some data on the disk is going to be bad. And even the RAID arrays themselves, I always kind of looked at the RAID arrays as keeping my RAID alive and running when one disk fails, but actually, and I see on your chart here, you talk about checksums and digital signatures and proactive repair. Having eFolder actually check the data consistently to make sure that the data on the hard drive is actually valid. And again, I suppose I was innocent, and as I'm talking with other colleagues, they also seem to be kind of innocently unaware of the opportunity of you upload this file, and it could, without protections for silent data corruption, just go bad. And you assume that this file that you've copied is good, but in actuality, it's bad. So I was educated by eFolder on a lot of the techniques that they have for preventing silent data corruption, and I can kind of sleep easy at night knowing that because of the work that they do on that, the files that I have at the data center for my customers are constantly checked and constantly, made sure that they're good files. Ted, you might be able to mention a little more detail on the
I guess the important thing that we always stress, and this kind of answers at least one question that somebody has, so whether vendor XYZ doesn't do proactive data integrity checking, you'll be surprised what you find. And I guess what we always, rather than calling out, we don't always have a good view into what other vendors are doing in their cloud environment. But what we strongly encourage partners to do is if you're doing business with a vendor and you're leveraging a public storage cloud, ask them what they're doing technically to prevent silent data corruption. And ask them to give you the technical details on their methodology. Because it is kind of rocket science, if you will. There's some hard science behind this. And where the rubber meets the road is we have to maintain massive amounts of capacity in our cloud environment to accommodate the keeping copies of the data to proactively repair it. So anybody other vendors we definitely have competitors who do not do as good of a job in this area as we do. So what we just encourage people to do is ask the tough questions if you're doing business with other people, and ask for the technical explanations of how they prevent silent data corruption.
Yeah, and there were, I did some kind of web searching on it at the time, and I can't remember all the details now, but I mean there were words like misdirected writes and torn writes and data path corruption and RAID firmware bugs and I think parity pollution and all kinds of things that just make data go bad once it's originally stored. And as I said, I was kind of innocently unaware of those types of problems, and I'm just happy to know that eFolder's taking care of those things for me, so I don't have to worry about it.
So, Lloyd, a question that came in a couple minutes ago, kind of related. Going back to RMM, can you say with 100% certainty that your backups are running just by looking at one portal?
I can say that if I go into the eFolder portal, I would know from within my own RMM tool, we're looking for an hourly backup on every server that we manage with this software, and we're getting an alert if there was not an hourly backup for that server. So I can look at one screen and either confirm or deny that we're getting or not getting those backups for those servers. But kind of separate from that, and we kind of default to that because it's just our natural tool, and we're using Kaseya for all kinds of stuff all day, every day for all of our clients. But separate from that, I can go up into the eFolder portal and in one view just see a kind of a spreadsheet-looking screen of all of our customers, and it's literally a shaded background color of green or red. And that's letting me know that the offsite transfer happened. And as part of the offsite transfer in the eFolder backup software, they've built in some reading of the Shadow Protect image manager log files, which would produce an error message if the on-site backups were not working either. So the fact that I see a green on there, that tells me that I've got an off-site copy, and it's telling me that the on-site logs have been read and that there were on-site backups happening. So I guess, yes, I do have a single portal that I can look at and feel comfortable that they're all running.
Okay, let me just address a couple other just purely tactical questions. Are we going to provide copies of the slide deck? Yes, we will. And then there's another question which says, a lot of these topics being covered I was not aware of, even as a BDR reseller. Is there some documentation somewhere where I can look through and distribute to my team that covers these in more detail? Yeah, so what I direct you to is the eFolder partner portal. If you're an existing partner, you have access. If you're not yet a partner, you can work with one of our account managers to become a partner and get access to the portal. But yeah, a lot of these topics, say for instance, we have a couple technical white papers on some of the technical things we're doing in our cloud environment to prevent silent data corruption, and you can go in and find those on the partner portal. In addition to additional technical documentation on various eFolder services. And we actually just implemented a week or two ago full-text searchability for the portal, so you can just go in there and search by keyword to find the content assets you're looking for.
Okay, should we go on to the next slide then, Ted?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm just looking for, there we go, Exchange granular recovery. So on my list of, like, this is number 4 of the 5 things that really helped us choose eFolder as well as feel comfortable vetoing another provider. Many of our customers run Microsoft Exchange Server, and being able to restore Exchange email items, calendar items, contact items, task items is something that we do on a regular basis using in the past, the backup exec software. And it was really kind of a non-event. I mean, someone just deleted some email messages or deleted some calendar entries or contact entries. It really was not a big deal for us to just go and restore those items from backup exec. And as we were doing our analysis of the backup solutions that were available in the imaging and BDR world, in those instances, you're not really doing application-level backups. You're just doing block-level backups of the hard drives. And what we found was that a lot of the vendors, a lot of the providers did not have anything in place that would allow you to restore just basic emails, calendar items, contact items, task items from Exchange. I mean, their basic solutions were to go in, use your imaging software to restore a copy of the Exchange mailbox store to the Exchange recovery features inside Exchange Server, and then from there, jump through a lot of hoops that are part of the white paper and the articles from Microsoft about how you use the Exchange recovery group to restore things. And actually I didn't try it myself, but I had some of my technical staff actually go through those steps, and I mean, it was just lots of painful work, especially for someone like ourselves who was used to it being no big deal. You just go into backup exec and you grab what you want and hit restore or wait a couple of minutes and you're done. So eFolder, through Shadow Protect, has the Shadow Protect Granular Recovery for Exchange feature, or GRE, and in there I'm able to just kind of simply grab a point-in-time snapshot, whether it be the most recent backup or one from yesterday or the day before or the week before or the month before, and it's a pretty simple, easy wizard-type process where you just grab the information store and answer a couple click-through types of things, and poof, up pops on your screen something that looks like the screen capture that's on the webinar slide here, where I can just kind of see at the top of the screen the user's information, and on the bottom of the screen I see their current mailbox, and I can just grab what I want from the backup file and restore it to their production mailbox. I should note that it also works with Exchange public folders, that some of the other products that we looked at, they had some type of solution for mailbox backups and restores, but no solution for Exchange public folders. And maybe some of the other people on the webinar aren't doing a lot with Exchange public folders, but we still have a large number of our clients that are using Exchange Server on-premise who are using Exchange public folders. And to not have an option to recover information from those was not really a valid option for us. We couldn't embrace a new backup solution that didn't have an option to restore granular mailbox items or restore public folder items. And surprisingly, something kind of as basic as that was something that many of the other BDR and backup imaging vendors did not offer. So it was a plus in the side of a green check mark in the side of the eFolder choice, and red X's in the columns for the other providers.
So Lloyd, a couple questions. To be clear, the question says you need to run the StorageCraft software to do this. You can't do the mailbox restore with just the eFolder software.
Correct. It's using the Exchange Granular Recovery software. Whenever you get the Shadow Protect software from eFolder, when you get the license for it, you also get a license for the Exchange Granular Recovery software. So you just kind of run that software separately whenever you go to do the restore. There's nothing separate that's running at the time of the backup. But just when you go to do the restore, you're bringing up the Exchange granular recovery software.
Right. And kind of a follow-on question to that is, is the Exchange GRE included in the BDR pricing, or is it a separate item we have to purchase?
I'm going to say it's included because that's, as far as I know, that's always been included with all of the licensings that we've done, and I don't recall ever getting a bill for anything separate. I suppose Ed or Ted, you could confirm that.
Yeah. So every BDR install comes with 50 user licenses for the GRE function. So there is an additional charge above 50, but 50 are included per client location. And so that's nothing extra, right? So that's included in the $20 per server, or $25 per server, depending on your deployment configuration that we already talked about. So
yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I should be clear on that. I believe, now that I'm saying this out loud, if you buy the BDR appliance itself, then the Exchange granular recovery software was included in the fee for the first 50 mailboxes. If you wanted to go over 50 mailboxes, then there was just a price per mailbox on a one-time basis. And I forget the dollar amount, but it wasn't anything that caught my attention. That was like $2 or $3 or something as a one-time fee. If you go for the Shadow Protect standalone solution, where that was kind of mentioning that we might do for some of our smaller clients, where you don't have the BDR appliance itself and you're just kind of installing the software on the server and backing it up to some attached storage device, there was a one-time separate charge for the Exchange granular recovery software. I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was small enough, like $100 or $150 or something like that, that we were charged in those instances when there was no BDR appliance and we were just installing the Shadow Protect software on the server itself. But it was a one-time fee. It wasn't an additional monthly fee.
Okay. Let's see here. No additional questions on this topic. So.
Okay. And then I think just kind of rounding out the last of the things that I kind of helped us, and I'd say this was not something that was on our initial list of requirements or that kind of helped us choose initially, but it's something that's been reinforced over the last year while we've been working with eFolder, and that's eFolder's willingness to listen to suggestions that I made and some of my other colleagues had made, and actually innovate and update their products or services. So one of the things that I would focus on is when we did our big long spreadsheet and we got green check marks and red X's, and the more green check marks you have, the better the solution, and the more red X's someone had, the more there was a reason not to choose that solution. And one of the features that some of the other vendors had that eFolder did not have this time last year when we were doing our analysis was the cloud virtualization. And I'm not sure how applicable it is to our particular clients, but just kind of knowing that these other vendors had this option where we could take a backup image at the data center and spin it up as a virtual machine at the data center really was nice to know that would have been available, even though I wasn't sure how we would use it. Some of the other vendors were saying, hey, we have this feature. Some of them, it was a small amount of money. Other people charged a huge amount of money, like several $1,000s to spin up that virtual machine. But even in a disaster scenario, I could imagine maybe a client would have been willing to pay that money just to get it up and running. But eFolder didn't have that option. And when I expressed that concern to eFolder management and said, hey, some other people in the industry have this feature, I think it's something that you should be looking at. They took that advice, and now we're at the point where we have the eFolder Continuity Cloud, which Ted, I think is coming out next month.
Well, late February will be the production. We are in late beta. We are days away from going into production, but we'll publicly announce it probably late February.
Yeah. So it was just nice to see that eFolder had kind of took that feedback back, listened to myself and some of my colleagues who were saying that, hey, that's a service that we think we should have in our offering, and they actually did what they needed to do to make that happen. And from a pricing standpoint, I haven't, it's not actually released yet, so I don't know about the final, how everything works, but from what I understood, Ted, everything was extremely reasonably priced, and not like some of the other other vendors who had that option where they were going to charge thousands of dollars to spin up a virtual machine. There was nothing like that with your eFolder Continuity Cloud.
Right, and so we haven't yet announced pricing, but as you noted, it'll be, one of the first things that makes it our approach quite different is that you're not paying more for every gigabyte of backed up data every month of the year to have this capability in your back pocket. You're only paying for it on an as-needed basis for emergency cloud recovery. So that's one of the key differences versus other competitors. And then, yeah, to Lloyd's point, it's going to be hundreds of dollars, not, I want to be careful not to misquote the pricing, but it's going to be like, call it roughly like $300 for like a 2-week window of having the Continuity Cloud in production. So affordable, emergency as needed only, and something that you can turn around and monetize with your own clients by adding an SLA to your own offering and charging, a much more significant uplift from that to give your clients that capability for a worst case scenario type event.
Yeah, I mean there were some of the people that I talked to at the time that wanted several $1,000s to spin up a virtual machine in the cloud. And even though you only had to pay for it if it happened, I mean, that was just really far too much drama for me to have a conversation with our clients about how much that was going to cost. So I kind of felt like I'd be holding a gun to their head. I mean, do you want to keep running do you want me to keep your business running? I'm just going to charge you $5,000. Whereas if we have something available for a few $100s to us, and then we can charge our customer whatever's appropriate. But to have that option, it was comforting for me to see eFolder do and listen and make it happen kind of after I was a customer, kind of reinforced my good feelings that I chose the right vendor to work with.
Okay, so I think at this point in the presentation, I just want to make just one more kind of just a couple final comments, and want to remind you that we've got 10 minutes more of Lloyd's time for questions. So keep the questions coming in. But we talked about some of the flexible deployment scenarios. For very small clients, but I think what's important to understand is just how the standard pricing for the BDR offering works. So eFolder BDR, there's really 3 components to the cost: the appliance, the software, and then the services. The appliances range anywhere from around $1,600 to $7,000, depending on the configuration. You have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you initially configure our appliances, and they're also field upgradable, so you can add additional memory and storage down the line if the client kind of outstrips the capabilities of the initial deployment. But you're talking anywhere from $1,600 to $7,000 depending on the configuration. It is important to note that we are currently assessing a $150 per hard drive surcharge due to the hardware shortage, the hard drive shortages due to the Thailand flooding. So we don't anticipate those being, permanent. Of course, it's a temporary surcharge, and what you can anticipate is there's about a $300 uplift per appliance from the high volume appliances due to that surcharge. So that's the appliance. The software, as we talked about, when it's in this configuration, the kind of standard configuration, it's $20 per month per server being protected, or alternatively, you can buy the perpetual license for $575. And then the service itself is $40 a month wholesale per BDR appliance, and that includes 150 gigabytes of cloud storage in the eFolder storage cloud. When you exceed that 150 amount, the pricing will range anywhere from 30 cents to 20 cents per gigabyte based upon your total usage. And then there is, if you are backing up critical workstations or desktops, there is a $5 a month charge if you're using the Shadow Protect software for that sort of application. So, kind of that's some of the final comments I wanted to make, and I want to make sure we have enough time for questions. So let me just go to the Q&A log here. There's one question: do we have to buy your BDR appliance, or can we use our own server? Yes, you can. We do, just like the. That's another kind of flexibility scenario, is that you can, and I actually have a slide on this. Let's see if I can go to the. So let me just go ahead and display this. Oops. But yes, you can build your own BDR, if you will. You can use your own third-party server, and the pricing is similar to the Shadow Protect standalone kind of configuration we talked earlier. So the Shadow Protect licenses will be $25 per server in this sort of configuration. But yes, you can use. I mean, if you don't want to use eFolder BDR hardware, you can put in a Dell server or an HP server and install the software components, and we have an application note on how to do this. And then the pricing is similar from a service perspective. It's $40 a month, and that includes the 150 gigabytes of offsite storage in the eFolder storage cloud. Let's see here. Just scanning the log here. So there's a question, what about migration to eFolder backup from other Shadow Protect servers, example Zenith? Is it as simple as loading the eFolder tools, or is there more to it? Yes, we definitely have a service that we call our BDR Rescue service, which allows you to leave in place for instance, a Zenith BDR appliance, and you're able to then install the eFolder software on that appliance and point the offsite to the eFolder storage cloud, and there's some special pricing that's available for that one application. So we will charge you only 15 cents per gigabyte for the offsite for that one type of application. It's a competitive price. It's called, if you go to efolder.net/rescue, you can see more details. But clearly there's a lot of people out there who are looking for alternatives. But forklift upgrading a Zenith appliance, has a lot of costs associated with it. So if you're concerned about that relationship and you want to leave that BDR appliance in place for another year or two, you can point the offsite to eFolder, get that peace of mind of protecting that data in our cloud environment without having to forklift that appliance. And then at some point, you can migrate in an eFolder BDR once that hardware is at its effective life cycle end. So BDR Rescue Program. If you just Google BDR Rescue Program, you'll also find that. Let's see here. So Lloyd, kind of a technical question just on sizing and scoping a deployment. The question is, so if you have a new client with 300 gigabytes of data and multiple locations, which eFolder solution would you recommend? 2 BDRs at 2 sites, or 1 BDR in the eFolder storage cloud? I guess you may need to, you probably need to ask them some additional questions, but maybe if you could just comment on kind of sizing a deployment.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that any place where we are, any site with the server, we typically have, either the BDR appliance if we were doing a BDR deployment with the on-site virtualization option, or we'd have the external hard drive if we were doing the Shadow Protect standalone installation. From a sizing standpoint, I mean, from what we've experienced over the last year and kind of what we've been talking to our clients about and quoting our clients, I mean, if somebody came to me and they had about 300 gigabytes of data on their server right now, I would estimate, it kind of depends on what kind of data they have. If they got a bunch of music files or video files that are already compressed, then we're not going to get a lot of additional compression out of them. But assuming it's just your normal type of file server with a broad brush, if somebody had 300 gigabytes worth of data on their server, we'd expect that their initial base image files were probably going to be about half of that, so 150 gigabytes. And then on a monthly basis, the image manager software from Shadow Protect will be doing our roll-ups every day, every week, every month. And over time, our off-site storage at the eFolder storage cloud will grow by the amount of the monthly image. And we pretty much have been seeing and planning on that after a year of off-site storage, it would probably grow to that approximately that 300 gigabyte size that kind of matches the actual raw native on-site data. And we were pretty much planning on at some point after a year or so, we'd create a new base image and resend the data to the data center and kind of get the offsite storage back down to the 150 gigabytes. So I know some other people do things differently, but in our world, I've seen the base image being about half of what the raw data is, and then over time, over the course of a year, kind of grows back up to about that same data size. So if we were talking to a prospective customer that had 300 gigabytes of data, we'd probably be quoting about 300 gigabytes of offsite storage, but knowing that in the end, initially it's going to be much less than that, and over time it's going to grow up to that value.
Okay. And then kind of a technical question, you talked about performing 1-hour snapshots as opposed to 15-minute snapshots. Can you talk a little bit about the technical trade-offs around that?
Sure. That was something that we decided ourselves. We haven't, kind of coming from the backup exec type of backup where we were doing one backup a day, and now doing one backup every hour. I mean, that was a huge leap forward in the frequency of backups and the opportunity to have different restore points. Kind of going to every 15 minutes it initially just seemed a little too aggressive for us, and our customers weren't really even thinking of 15-minute backups. I mean, just talking to them about hourly backups was, very impressive by itself. I do know some of my colleagues that do every 15 minutes, and that's kind of their norm. But to us, we were going from once-a-day backups to once every hour, and that was kind of leaps and bounds forward. We were fine with that. It also kind of gives us what I'd call a little bit of a maintenance window, where if we typically would back up the servers at the top of the hour. If we have multiple servers that we're backing up, if a customer has 4 servers, we might do it at the top of the hour, 5 minutes after the hour, 10 minutes after the hour, 15 minutes after the hour. It kind of leaves us the last half of each hour to reboot servers, and install software updates, or do whatever kind of normal maintenance that we'd have to do on a server without introducing the opportunity for there to be some type of error recorded because we're trying to reboot the server in the middle of a backup job, which I'm quite comfortable the software would recover from it from just fine. But from a monitoring standpoint, to start getting an alert that there was an error related to the backup, which just we kind of self-inflicted on ourselves because we were doing something while the backup was happening. Doing once an hour backup was fine for our clients. It far exceeded what they had before, but it still gave us plenty of time to do the things that we needed to do to manage the backups on the servers. So it's just kind of a personal decision that we made.
Okay. So kind of a different question, but the question is, I'm in Canada. Can I retain my client data off-site in my own data center? And I guess that kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about the replication capabilities. You want to just comment on that?
And I haven't used the replication features yet myself at all, but I think in the slide deck there was a slide on that, and that was a case where we could replicate to different BDR appliances at different sites, or maybe a BDR appliance at our own site, I suppose. But you could have, I think the context where I had talked to eFolder about it was having a customer that had multiple locations, and they could back up data from one location and replicate it to another location. There you go, right there, where we could replicate from the one BDR appliance to the other BDR appliance. And if we wanted to, then also supplement that with storage at the eFolder storage cloud.
Right, and we do have a relationship. We do have an option for. We do have a Canadian location too. So if it's for like compliance reasons, you want to keep the data in Canada, we do have a public cloud option available in addition. But replication is definitely a solution that a lot of partners are leveraging when they want to keep data, for whatever reason, either cost control or your own service offering or whatever. The replication feature is included in that $40 a month per location, so it doesn't cost anything extra and allows you to do cross-site replication or many-to-one replication back to a central kind of a hub and spoke type central BDR appliance. So. Let's see here. So, I think in the interest of time, we started right on time and we're over the hour, so I don't want to keep Lloyd any longer, but I want to thank everybody for coming today. If you have additional questions, we will, if we didn't get to your question, we will try to reach you on email. I strongly encourage you to work with your eFolder account manager or salesperson if you're, getting started with us. And get any additional questions you might have answered. If you're an existing partner, do look on the partner portal for answers to some of these questions and some of the materials we talked about. And then we will be sending out copies of these slides along with a recording of today's session for everybody who attended. So with that, Lloyd, thank you very much for joining us and sharing all this information.
You're very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
And to all the eFolder partners or folks checking us out, thank you very much for spending an hour with us today. Have a great week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.